In our last video, we talked about making our words dance by altering our pitch, volume, and using punctuation to change the tempo of our reads. Today, we are going to introduce a new element and another great way to change our voices to bring more life to our narrations: character voices. One of the things that makes voice acting so unique is that our characters are not limited by the way we look. Based on my appearance, I might never be able to play a hyper 5-year-old kid or a grumpy 85-year-old man on stage. But with voice acting, my only limitations are my imagination. In just about every book we read, there are moments where quotation marks signify a character's dialogue. This is a break from the narrator's storytelling and a moment where the characters themselves actually speak out. So it only makes sense that this character should have a different voice than the narrator. In our first lesson, we made note of the times that different characters speak in our books. You may have even taken the extra step to write down a little bit about each character. Great, because the more we know about each character, the more ammunition we have to bring their voices to life. When it comes to building characters, we get to be like little detectives, pulling clues from throughout the story to give answers and insight into each character. These clues can be found in 3 different ways: what the author says about the character, what the character says about themselves, and what other characters in the book say about the characters. Pulling from this data, we can start to answer questions like who? Who exactly is this character? What's their age, their gender identity, species? Sometimes a book refers to a talking squirrel who I imagine speaks a little differently than you or I might. Here you can start asking more questions about their attitudes and their personality. Where? Where does this character come from? Someone who comes from a wealthy family in England may have a little different voice than someone who grew up in a trash can on Sesame Street. You might also ask yourself where they are when they are speaking. Trying to speak to a friend in a library is going to be very different than speaking to someone at an amusement park. What time is it when the dialogue takes place? This can give you insight on how tired a character is, or maybe they've just finished 12 cups of coffee and have a little more energy. When in the year is it? If a story takes place in the middle of winter, the character may have a different voice than if they were in a hot desert in the middle of the summer. This is just scratching the surface, but as you can see, the amount of questions you can ask is endless. Now that we've started to figure out a little bit more about the character, here is our chance to create their voice. Remember, as narrators, we want to make everyone sound a little bit different so that the audience can differentiate who is talking to who. There are 4 different ways that we can change our voices to help create characters, and we can use any combination of these to do so. First, speed. This is how fast or slow the character speaks. Let's use this piece of dialogue as an example. I can't believe you could do such a thing. I can't believe you could do such a thing. Could you hear the difference? Without changing my voice and simply saying words faster or slower, I created 2 very distinct characters. Next, volume. The volume which characters speak says a lot about who they are, and there is a whole range of volumes that we could play with, starting with a whisper and going all the way to a boisterous yell. Let's use the same sentence as an example, this time changing only the volume which I speak. I can't believe you could do such a thing. The quietness might show the character as being soft-spoken or shy, versus, I can't believe you could do such a thing, which sounds to me more like a tough guy, or perhaps someone with a little overconfidence. Next up, pitch. This is a fun one. Try this with me. We are all capable of a huge range of sounds, from all the way up here in the squeaky tone to
down here in our bassy trailer voice.
Now that we are familiar with our own range, pick where you want your character voice to live.
I will never forgive you!
Versus, I will never forgive you.
Lastly, placement. The sounds that we make tend to originate from different parts in our mouth or body. Try plugging your nose with me and saying, "Why, hello there! How are you?" Now unplug your nose and try to sound the same way. "Hello there! How are you?" The sound is originating in my nose, hence it is nasal sounding. Now try to take a big yawn and say the same thing.
How could you do such a thing?
Sounds different too, doesn't it? You can sound all sorts of different ways depending on where you place the sound. Now it's time to mix and match. Try the fast-talking, quiet nasal voice with a high pitch. How about a chest voice talking really slow and loud? Just by switching these elements around, you can see how many different character varieties you can create. That said, I know this is a lot to take in, and if you don't quite feel ready to play around with your voices quite yet, at the very least, you can create different characters simply by focusing on the dialogue tags. Dialogue tags are the little phrases before or after a quotation that help to describe how the words are being said. For example, Harry shouted, Millie whispered, the king bellowed, or they can be used to describe the character's tone or pitch, like shrieked, groaned, whimpered. Last but not least, dialogue tags can be written to help describe the character's emotions. For example, Poppy pleaded, the troll grumbled, the bully said jokingly. Now get out there and give your characters some fun voices. And don't forget, the narrator is a character too. It's probably easiest to keep that voice as close to your own as you can, but they too have attitudes about what they're talking about and describing. In our next lesson, we'll explore physicality and go into a little more detail about how we can use our bodies to further bring these characters to life. I look forward to hearing what you come up with. See you next video.